welcome back to Logan Rando Aquascaping. My name is Logan, and today I have an update for you guys on my little nano aquarium, my UNS 5N. So last time we did an update on this tank, I did a pretty big rescape / replanting. I changed up the hardscape, and I completely replanted everything using the feedback of my good friend and colleague, Yuri Zuchayev. So several weeks later, the tank is in a completely new state, and I'm really happy to report that things are doing really well. And I think this tank is a great opportunity to talk about striking a balance between striving for excellence from an artistic point of view and also just enjoying the imperfections as a hobbyist. But before we get started, if you could do me a massive favor and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hate asking for that constantly, but a little channel like mine, it really makes a big difference. Helps me get my content out to more people. So let's get started. All right, so as you can see from a distance, this tank looks really nice in my studio. It's right next to my desk where I work as a video editor, so I'm constantly looking at it, and I often find myself doing my guitar practice right in front of this tank. It's really peaceful and serene despite its imperfections, and I have to say I'm really happy with all the hair grasses growing in. So let's talk a little bit about the plants. So it's primarily composed of Eleocharis pusilla. In the back, there is Eleocharis vivipara. Now I have to say right from the get-go, the background Eleocharis is really taking its sweet time growing in. For some reason, it's a bit stunted and seems to be really low to the ground. And I'm a little bit suspicious that perhaps when I ordered the plants, a lower growing species was sent to me by mistake. The tissue culture cups weren't labeled, so I just kind of took a risk and assumed they were the vivipara, but who knows, maybe a mistake was made. Either way, I'm gonna make sure that the background gets nice and tall. At the very least, the pusilla will spread back there so I could let that grow tall. But if push came to shove, I could always order some submerged vivipara for instant impact and just replant the background. But we're gonna be patient and I'm gonna give it some more time. So in the foreground, we have some Hemianthus cuba that is doing quite well. When this tank was first set up last spring, the cuba struggled a little bit, but it seems to have found its sweet spot, and I'm really happy with the coloration, and I've actually trimmed it several times since doing the rescape. So pretty happy with that. The shrimp love grazing on it, and it stays pretty clean. Now, if we move to the mid-ground, you're gonna start to see a little bit of the BBA issue that I have in this tank. What a surprise, once BBA is in your systems, it's really hard to eliminate completely. And I did make the mistake of using some infected plants in this tank from a previous layout, so shame on me for doing that. That said, it's pretty much under control. Once in a while, I'll treat problem areas with hydrogen peroxide. I'm always scrubbing, so it's really only visible upon close examination, and you know, it's one of those things that you really just have to live with or burn everything down and start fresh. So the wood in this tank, which is the amazing dragon wood that Boost Plant sent me, is really the star of the show. I wanted this tank to be very hardscape dominant, and one of Yuri's critiques of my original jungle style setup was that the planting just totally took away from the hardscape. And I'm really happy to see that this Eleocharis highlights it really nicely. It contrasts in texture and color nicely, and really when you step back, it just looks really prominent. Now, I would say my biggest critique is that piece of wood on the right side is not quite prominent enough, so I really want to lift that up, and I might have to glue it to a rock in order to do so. So in the next few weeks, I'll tweak that a little bit to get that to be a little bit more prominent, but I think the way the wood flows is really nice, and I'm really digging it. Let's talk a little bit about the livestock in this tank. This tank features the Chili Risbora, aka Boraris brigate, and these are the most confident, outgoing social Chili Risboras I've ever kept. They seem to be really happy in this tank. They're voracious feeders, and they're always out and about. They're just not shy. So I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there are no predators in this tank. There's really nothing they have to hide from outside of the Boraris brigate. We've got some auto cats. Now, I initially put these in to just offer a little bit of algae control. I do find that they look way too large for this tank. They sort of kill the scale. So I think in the next few weeks, what I'll do is remove them from this tank and then introduce them into my UNS 45U. They'll help out a little bit with the algae and diatoms in there, and will help restore that sense of scale in here. And then finally, we've got some crystal red shrimp, and these guys are just incredible. They're breeding all over the place despite the high CO2, high lighting and firsts that I run in here. There are all sorts of generations, all sorts of coloration and grades, and they're just so cool to watch. I have always dreamed dreamed of keeping crystal red shrimp, and I was always nervous, but fortunately here in Portland, Oregon, we've got super soft water. It comes out of the tap at 30 parts per million TDS, and because this tank has a bunch of wood, the water remains really soft, low KH, low GH. I keep the TDS at around 120 to 150 parts per million, reset that a little bit when I do a water change, and then remineralize. So with all of those updates out of the way, it's time to take the opportunity to talk about striking a balance as an artist and a hobbyist. So I am one of those people that very much treats aquascaping as an art form and a craft. It's something I don't just simply enjoy as a hobby. I want to get better. There's a ton of artistic value that it brings to me, and I want to improve my craft with each and every aquascape, and with that comes setting goals and expectations. However, I'm also a hobbyist. I'm also a guy who just wants to have nice aquariums in his house so that when I'm playing some guitar or relaxing at night, I can enjoy the sights. And I often find that it's difficult to achieve that balance, because if you're constantly striving for excellence and maybe even perfection, you're gonna notice all those little flaws and you might not be able to sit back and enjoy your aquascapes. And I think I'm pretty happy to say that in the last year and a half, I've sort of found that balance. So what I find is it's usually the process of setting goals and doing the maintenance and doing the work and trying to get better, but just kind of practicing self-love and practicing forgiveness and not shaming yourself when things don't go perfect. This hobby is not a perfect science. There's a lot of science involved, but there's also a lot of art and design and craft involved, and none of it is perfect. There's so much ambiguity, and a lot of things can go right, but also a lot of things can go wrong, sometimes simultaneously. So that's where you just have to do your best and strive to do things the right way and the best way for your lifestyle, but just know that things aren't always gonna go perfect, and it's gonna bring you a ton of peace of mind to just be able to sit back and be okay with the things that are out of your control. Because sometimes with these little ecosystems, there's a lot of things that are out of your control. And that's sort of the balance that I've found in recent years, and it's really elevated my enjoyment of the hobby. So I'd love to know from you guys and gals what you do down below in the comments to strike that balance between craft and art and striving for excellence, and also just enjoying your tanks as a hobbyist. So let me know down below in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you guys and gals in the next video. Thanks for watching. This has been Logan with Logan Rando Aquascaping.